And obviously, do you think our kids are good summarizers?
No.
No.
No. No. It's really, that is the most difficult thing, is for them to understand what the main idea is in anything. And, you know, the supporting details they can understand if it's what they think the main idea is. How many of you think we need to be? Do you think it's important? It's an important strategy for us? Do you think we need to model it and teach it? We really, really do. We really do. Sometimes we assume they're good note takers and summarizers, and they really need us to model it. So we're going to learn how we can help them. Okay, summarizing, and you probably know these things. You know, they have to understand how do you delete things, substitute things, so they understand what they're writing, keeping things, what to keep when a teacher gives them notes. The hardest thing about this is that it's very analytical, and most of our kids are concrete thinkers. A lot of our kids are concrete thinkers. And so being analytical means that we have to help them with those higher order thinking skills. And so we're going to share some things that I hope will help our kids in understanding how to summarize better. Okay, how many have heard the rules-based strategy for summarizing? And it's really hard. You can give a kid a really long paragraph and ask them to summarize it, but they need to know what they're supposed to do when they summarize. You have to delete the trivial things, the things that aren't important, and then delete the material that's redundant, because sometimes in text they repeat things often. And so they have to know how to do this. And to substitute and make terms for lists, like instead of daisies, you know, when they give you all that in a paragraph, or if they're giving you types of fish. You know, you just say fish instead of halibut and all that. But I'm going very quickly through this. You also have to select a topic sentence or embed one when you're summarizing. So it's very hard for kids to summarize. And I'll give you an example probably tomorrow of some summarizing when you look at a paragraph and then they summarize it into one sentence. And that's a strategy. A one-sentence summary is a strategy. So after you're teaching for 5 minutes or so, you know, and you're lecturing and giving notes, just stop and have them maybe pair share, think pair by someone beside them, partner, and say, okay, right now the two of you write down one sentence strategy for what I just said. You know, a summary of what I just said. If you could do it, just give me one sentence. And then go around the room in pairs and see what different things you may get. It'll be interesting to see. Reciprocal teaching. Anybody familiar with reciprocal teaching? Probably you are, Linton, we did that, and actually this is so important for kids, especially in English where you could really practice some of this. There's four techniques that go with reciprocal teaching. Summarizing after you give them, or if they're reading, Mice and Men, summarizing it. You can even have a student leader in your room, someone that could summarize what you just taught them. And then you could have someone that's the questioner, that could ask questions, something they don't understand. And then you could have a student leader, or, you know, pick one of your students to be the clarifier of clarifying some of those questions, some things that students don't understand. And it makes students feel more comfortable if somebody else doesn't understand, because sometimes if you're sitting there and you're kind of like, oh, I just don't get it, but I don't want to say I don't get it. So that really helps. But also predicting what's going to happen next in the story. So these 4 things are really great. Now, if you could do it in small groups, which I know that it's really hard, and I know in secondary sometimes we don't want to try that, but if you could do small groups, and I actually am going to give you something tomorrow too that in our summarizing packet, where it gives the summarizer their job, the questioner their job, the clarifier their job, and the predictor their job. Yes. Okay. Note taking. Verbatim is least effective. And I was asking students again, a couple students, after I was told to do this, like last week, I was trying to get a hold of a couple students and ask them, how do you take notes? How do you know what the main point is when your teacher's talking? And it was really funny, some of the answers I got. You know, some of them thought, well, their tone of voice changes, which was that was really perceptive, because usually it does when you really want to. And one of them said, usually the teacher will say, it's on a test. So I'll write it down.
You're going to see this again.
Yes, or you're going to see this again, so you know. But kids who try to sit there and try to take notes on everything you say, it doesn't work. And brain research will tell you that too. It's unfamiliar to them, so they can't write word for word on what you say. It's not going to work. If they were familiar with the content, they could do that, but they're not. Verbatim is least effective. Should be a work in progress. You should continuously use your notes and go back to your notes and have your students highlight some of the important things in it that you go back to. Put question marks beside things they don't understand. Draw little things or little pictures or something to bring back something that may jog their memory from prior knowledge. But the note should be like a working document, really. So you should keep going back to the notes. Use them as study guides. And a lot of us do use our notes as study guides or leave blanks so that they have to go through. The only thing about that is I know in special ed we did do that. We would hand them a study guide, and we would assume that they could just look at the chapter and just fill in the blanks. And really that's a good practice for them to try to scan and look for material in their reading, but locating stuff in the context. But it's really not an effective strategy for note-taking. And the more notes, the better, believe it or not. The more notes they write on it, and if you bring those notes back to them, and they continuously write on them, research shows that the more notes, the better for them. There's a student informal outline. Webbing is really a good way. I don't know if any of you use webbing, but webbing is with the big circles are the main idea, and the little circles are the supporting details, and they can do a combination of that. They can even put that beside your PowerPoint, or something besides romanticism. Romanticism's the big circle, and then out branch the lines, and they can put little circles, the supporting details. And some kids really learn better that way, the multiple intelligence, and some kids who need to web and draw. So that helps them learn best, because we all learn in different ways, so that could help them. Combination notes are sort of both. It could be and you can, go ahead. It could be notes on one side, pictures on the other. You could do the webbing on the other, but it could be both. And usually at the bottom is a summary. You always want them to summarize a sentence or two at the bottom, and you'll notice that in my note-taking packet. And although we refer to these summarizing and note-taking as study skills, they are study skills, but there's so much more. It's something that will really help our kids be successful, any student, because it'll help them, actually dig into information and pull out the most important thing, and it's a powerful skill to help them learn different aspects of learning, provide students with tools to help them understand. These are great tools for comprehension.